Bujagari, the executive wanted to give a contract to make electricity in Bujagari to a company in America, and now the parliament took its authority and looked at it and said, no, this is not right, we are not taking this. 6th Parliament, you people, you always hear how 6th Parliament is a pain in the neck of our president. The 6th Parliament stood up like he was saying, no, we have our authority, we must take authority here. Executive, you are not going to order us here, like the NRC previously. And that was hell. Hell broke loose from that time. You people who don't know what is happening with this constitution and all that kind of thing, that the principle of separation of powers, where the president realized that, hey, you mean I am hampered in being the Professor Sempewa, what he told us, he's the head of the household. He tells these women and children, don't talk, don't talk. So all of a sudden he sees the wife talking now. Something must happen to you. So there was now a new strategy to recapture the authority from the institutions of the state, those 3 institutions, the parliament, the judiciary, and me as I talk, because I don't want to take long, because they have said it all, but I said I'm diplomatizing it for you. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, down the road, the parliament, the Constitution of Uganda, the parliament who was working with implementing the Constitution, ended with the 7th Parliament. And you all know, you who were there. Because when the term limit was proposed and removed, and was to be removed, and the Ugandans were saying no, some of us were the leaders who said no. Why? Because we knew what Ugandans want. We knew what Ugandans want. We were seeing them. We saw their passion. They said, this country, you are telling us of a constitution, but we can tell you, you cannot. What does the constitution mean when the president can never hand power peacefully? Their concern was, unless we have peaceful handover of power from one president to another, then this constitution does not make sense to us. And we asked them, so what do we do? And they said, let us limit the term of the president. Because the president comes in, they have power, they have military, they have resources, we cannot talk. You know, my senior here was saying, let us raise the demonstration. Which demonstration? Where will you demonstrate from? You know, my senior, you are telling them, let us do this, but you are telling the wrong people. All these people seated here have no right to do. That is the truth. The ones who have rights to do are not here. I hope they will read those things, but even if they do. So, for me, as far as I'm concerned, the moment the term limit was removed, and was removed through corruption. Who doesn't know this? When we stood up very tough, 5 million came. The parliament was bribed. They removed the term limit, and the beginning started. Right from the 8th parliament, implementation of the Constitution, the principle of separation of powers, and then the judiciary was raped. So now, in other words, he was saying diplomatically, but the principle of separation of powers does not apply in this country. You all know that. You look at the executive. Who rules the executive? Don't you know? In the constitutionalism, where is the position of the first family? Is it there? Is it given role? But practically rules this country. Who does? Me, I came here to undiplomaticalize these things so that you see them very properly. And I'm not going to talk too much. That constitution, as I told you, when you look at the principles which it had put, unity, peace, freedom, equality, we had suffered with the military. We had suffered the way we are suffering now. militarization. Me, I call the rulership in this country military dictatorship. Whether you talk of elections, to me, they mean nothing. This is me. You called me to talk as a person who started and saw the journey and saw where it is ending now. And I want to say that Ugandans have been captured, the institutions have been captured. For you, you are captured by fear. I don't know whether it is fear for jobs, whether fear for your lives. You just bow anyhow and you go on. So where is the constitutionalism now? Now I can look here and see what I had put. The major question of that constitution that time was governance, as you have heard. Handing of power peacefully from one president to another. It is now 40 years. No peaceful handover of power from one president to another. What independence is that? Me, I'm asking. Independence? Where Ugandans cannot decide, where the civil society, civic space is captured. Some of us are chased everywhere we go to try to do. You remember Sedu, which was looking over the elections and so on, and when I became a chair, it was closed completely so that he doesn't talk, but I continue talking because that is the talent I got. You remember when they gave talent? I've got to account for my talent when I go to heaven. And so, central, and I should finish, then we will debate. Central to the problem of governance in this country, which leads to violation of our constitution and forgetting what? Constitutionalism is what drives people into leadership in this country, especially the political leadership. What should drive people into leadership should be people. You should be self-centered, you should be people-centered and service-oriented. You go to positions of power, to get power, to use it, to serve your people and your nation. That is the leadership I knew. That is the leadership for which we are getting these awards. That one. But the current leadership right down the road as it moves has been overtaken by self-centeredness and power-oriented. People want power to use it for their self-interests. So, with that kind of thing, what constitutionalism are you talking about? Central to the Constitution were human rights. Human rights was very central. You can imagine the violation of human rights in this country. High. People are suffering. Then come greed. Have you ever, the other day I was saying, but surely I think our land is cursed because greed for land, torturing, oppressing. You ended with that statement, the animal farm, where those people who came to deliver us and we embraced, they have really oppressed, exploited, manipulated, that people are crying. Our guest of honor, Chief Speaker, people are crying for you, you live in your country, but people are suffering, people are crying, the oppressed, the poor. The gap between the rich and the poor is just too much. If you are poor, no treatment. The members of parliament, the ministers, they fly them away for treatment. For you, you die there suffering. Yes, relative stability, you said, yes, they are sleeping. But are they sleeping in peace or in pain? Really? This is serious. Now, I think I have said that fear, self-centeredness, and no constitutionalism, but constitution. Some form of godliness without respecting its power. One thing that our guest speaker said, which came into my mind, the second one was Professor. I won't quote your words, but they are there. I wish you could read them for us. But he said that something in this country is glooming. Those are my words. And unless it is halted or dealt with, we are in to see a full burst. I said, hey, kumbe the guest knows our things. Because for sure, all of you know whatever is going on, even with the elections. By the way, have you ever seen the parliament is not sitting? Why? Because the speaker is accompanying the president in the campaign. You people, where is the democracy? Where is constitutionalism? Where is it? The professor also knows. But for him, he could have stopped that commission. But for us who went to see and made the constitution, we are being accused. It is our fault. We are the people who gave the president the centralized power that he must do anything he wants. I want to tell you today, right? And so since he's answerable, once a president is elected, we should give him peace. I mean some way to nominate those people whom he thinks can work with him to lead this country. We said he should have that right to nominate. But we said, since Parliament represents power which belongs to us, to the members of Parliament and to the President, to lead us, now let the President, who will be answerable finally, have the authority and power to nominate the people he wants to work with. Whether cabinet, whether judges, whether what, government parastatals, let him nominate, but subject his nomination to the Parliament which represents us, so that the Parliament had the power and authority to reject or endorse. And when I was in that Parliament, which I called the Parliament, not this. Yes, we would decide. You know when we decided an appointment. But now, even when the Parliament essentially the minister stays there working, can you imagine? Done. Otherwise, the Parliament is the one supposed all these things which my seniors said, I was only detonating it to small ones.
Interesting. This conversation is live on UBC TV. Thank you. I'll ask our panelists to hold the seats a little bit so we can now get reactions from the plenary. I'll give whoever wants to speak, 3 minutes each. Just observe time, please. 3 minutes, and then we'll get back to, if you have any comment or question, then we'll get back to our speakers so we can conclude this conversation. Three minutes for everyone who's... Yes, thank you.
Mr. Moderator, sir, the distinguished panelists, and the keynote addresser. My name is John Ken Luchams, the man. Before I make any comment, I must say, without biasness, that the 3 stars are pronounced, should be pronounced as intellectuals. And to borrow the words of Professor Mazuri, who mentored me, Professor Mazuri defined an intellectual as a person who is fascinated by ideas and has acquired the skill to handle those ideas effectively. They have effectively acted. My first reaction goes to Honorable Matembe, who was my colleague in the service. Madam Matembe, you seem as if you had a fear for 1962 Constitution. You cannot disown the federal Constitution under which the Ugandan nation was born. Whether there were squiggles here and there, you should be proud of your birth as a nation state, so that you do not hide under the blame of colonialism as an influence to the right context. My comment is about the remarks made by Professor Sempewo, who was a key actor in the constitution-making exercise. Professor Sempewo, what persuaded you when you are making inquiries about constitutional making to pose questionnaires of this magnitude? Aware of the situation you have been going through, do you still need kingdoms? You are posing that question before the owners of the state. What was your purpose? You should be able to explain that. Now, we are in a dilemma, a big dilemma. Since I was a member of the 7th Parliament, let me tell you what exactly happened. When the government realized that the people of Uganda were still interested in the distribution of powers under federalism, after experiencing the report of Odoki and Professor Sempewa respectively, the government posed what they called regional tier. When the regional tier came to us in Parliament, we debated it squarely and rejected its form. Government went ahead to pass it through the influence of the NRM members. When it reached the Parliamentary Council, it is the Parliamentary Council that partially rescued us. When it refused to write the word regional tier because of its excessive ambiguity, they said in legislative drafting, and I'm a small authority in that area of law, you cannot write the word regional tier. It does not exist anywhere in the world, and it is a meaningless slogan. They wrote regional government. What is in the Constitution was formulated by the Parliamentary Council of Uganda, and a clap for her. Otherwise, regional tier, what does it mean? It does not mean anything. So the conservatives have protested. We are saying nobody is entitled to give us federalism. It is the people of Uganda to decide their destiny. And we have a petition in proposition which endeavors to make sure that we reform that regional governance provision squarely by saying that Uganda should be named the Federal Republic of Uganda, because the Federal Republic of Uganda reflects our adventure in the struggle for freedom. The government of Uganda is bent on letting us live the way in which we were formed, we were born, and we are insisting that we should have a devolution of powers, whether it likes or not. So from now onwards, the Conservative Party is going to pray very hard that we send as many MPs as possible in Parliament, so that when we reach Parliament, we can reform squarely that lame factor of regional tier into a meaningful federal slogan. What are we saying? The time is now to warn President Museveni that enough is enough. We can no longer be governed in the way he wants us to govern under that oligarchy, which includes his wife, his sons, his so and so. That chapter must go, and it must now. So the political parties now in the field, we are looked at as if we are underdogs, as if we are non-government organizations. We cannot talk. You, Justice Ogora, thank you for your brilliant presentation. I did not want you to stop. I wish he spoke on up to 7 p.m. tonight. Nolwekyo bagasitanda bannasange bagasitamba ntistinti ekisesera kitustuze mwestemwe mustuje omusasajja asajja kugestenda era agestenda.
Thank you, Honorable Ken Luchams. We need to make an agreement. 3 minutes is 3 minutes. All right? Yes. Okay, pass the mic on, and I'll find you wherever you are. 3 minutes, let it be 3 minutes.
Yeah, thanks very much. Our presenters. Godbert Mushabe are my names. I am the chairman of the board of CCG, and I do a couple of other things. Yeah, really, I mean, the presentations have been really spot on in terms of the nature of the crisis that we face. But you know, for me, just to bring it down, the crisis we face normally is manifest in the speech that has been given by my friend and brother, Thomas Tayobwa. Because you see, when you hold a public office, there are certain expectations on you. Whether you speak as a lawyer, which he is, whether you speak as a politician or an ordinary person. Now, but when you are a deputy speaker of parliament, and you come and speak to a public forum, and you say, one, you don't know what balance of power means. That's scary. That is completely scary. You don't know balance of power between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. But more scary is the rationalization that the president has more power because he is elected by everybody. That's really scaring you people. Because you see, everybody, even when you go to the Constitution, everybody who holds the power in this country holds it in trust for the citizens. That power is derived from the citizens. So, essentially for us as Ugandans, and our Constitution, made by these wonderful people, we said we will have a president. And we gave the president the power of appointment. So when he appoints the Chief Justice, and because that's the major appointment he makes, the Speaker is elected. So when he appoints the Chief Justice and all the other officers, this guy is appointing them on our behalf. He's not the one who is appointing. We are the ones who gave him the power. Now, the problem that we've had is that when we have leaders of the nature of the speaker, you know, you can't have a speaker who becomes a bag woman over a president. You can't. That's not a country. Let's be serious. Some of you have seen the speaker kneel down before a president. Surely, it's very, very disturbing that even all of us as a country, we accept it. A speaker of parliament kneeling before a president, and then it passes as if it's okay. Yeah? So I think that we have a problem now as a country because the deputy speaker was challenging me that I should go, I should contest, that I go and become an MP and be part of that group. Yeah, because you see, if you have, normally when you have a leadership in a country, you create the reason we, even all these agencies of government, the reason we give criteria and say you must have the foreign qualifications. You are trying to up the credibility of the institution so that it attracts the right people. Even in our small organizations, you set a criteria. We want researchers of this level. We want this because you are trying to up. Now, when you have a government that lowers the qualities and the specifications of these people, then you basically exclude those who think are very serious. I actually believe, to be honest, with all due respect, I don't think that if you are a serious Ugandan, you are aspiring to join that parliament. We have to be working to change that parliament so that we have the right people there. So that's I think that's the major issue that we have to deal with, that you have to be able to change the parliament. We change it, and by any means, by the way, Professor Sepebu and Miria, you did a wonderful job that when the Constitution is overthrown, I'm going to wind up in just a few seconds. When the Constitution is overthrown, we are supposed to use any means to be able to defend that Constitution. Because the 1995 Constitution was overthrown. It was overthrown in 2005, and whatever remained was removed in 2017. Let me conclude by the point on age limits. Because the speaker will come and say, me, I'm for age limits, I'm for term limits, but I don't want age limits. No, but it doesn't take rocket science to know that these wise men and women who wrote that document were creating safeguards. It's not an either-or. There's a safeguard of term limits. So if you are a young person like Kavera that he used, then we know you are only spending 2 terms. But there's also a safeguard of age limit which is separate and distinct from term limits. So if you are an old man like me, you know that if you are at 70, you know you can rule only for 1 term. So it's as simple as that. Does that take rocket science? Now, I find it frightening when someone like Speaker Tayewa and other high-profile people come and talk to Ugandans in that sense. You guys, we have a problem. We just need to be brutally honest with ourselves that we have to change the problem because the problem is there. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much. My name is Mike Awoneka from Walezi wa Katiba, Guardians of the Constitution. The 2 things for me. My Lord Justice Ogola, you asked us as Ugandans to defend our Constitution. And I'm asking, how else are we going to do it? We have gone to court. We have filed petitions. The streets, we no longer have spaces. All the playgrounds, all the spaces are taken over by the military. Cannot even go to the people in Makerere cannot even protest in the Freedom Square about school, about tuition. Where else can we go? What can we do to defend our Constitution? Lastly, the Constitution for the last 30 years has only been translated into 15 languages out of the 45 that it's supposed to. Civics and political education were banned from school. No one knows about the Constitution. So it is deliberate that we do not know about the Constitution. So that's something that we need to do. What do we do in the circumstances, in the defense of the Constitution, but lawful when the lawful means have been taken over by the boots.
Thank you so much. By virtue of my height, allow me to take the podium. Excuse me. Okay. I'm sure now you can see me, isn't it? Thank you so much. My name is Ochero Ronald Frank. I'm a medical student, 4th year at Kampala International University. Allow me first salute all the young men and women that are here today. We are the leaders of today, right? It's no longer realistic to say that we are leaders of tomorrow by virtue of our youthful population of Uganda and that of Africa that stands at an average age of 19 years, isn't it? All right, one of the areas of discussion today that has captured my attention was stability that was emphasized repeatedly by Honorable Speaker Thomas Tayebwa. But I feel like we are leaving the real question. The real question of today should not be stability, it should be sustainability. All Ugandans have seen what has happened. There is peace in the country. We are relatively stable, but it's also questionable, just like Professor Frederick has brought it in his analogy, and we have heard the speakers that have been arguing. So, stability is even questionable. The real question of today is sustainability. Yes? Okay. To have sustainability, we need to have strong and independent systems. We need to have strong and independent institutions, majorly the legislature and the judiciary, of which is arguably deniable that we do not have those systems at the moment. To have those strong systems, we need to have an empowered citizenry. We need to have an empowered generation. It is these empowered people that build strong systems. It is the strong systems then that go ahead to bring about sustainability and to hold our democracy. We can go about blaming the government of today, and we can do that for years and years. As long as we do not go back to empower the generations, that these generations are going to build these strong systems, that the systems are now going to hold government accountable. Yes, our judiciary is down, our legislature is down, and that is what those in power ride on to bring about unconstitutionalism and lack of rule of law. So I would like to thank Dr. Sarah and the panelists of today that are trying to bring this discussion down to young people. It is these empowered young people that are going to rise up and build these institutions that is going to now bring about what we want, the democracy and the rule of law.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's just have 2-3 comments. We'll get to our speakers and we'll come back for another round.
My name is Egesa Ronald Leonard. I am a civically active Ugandan. And I'd like to appreciate the panelists for this morning session. I was about just around 10, 11 years old when the Constitution was promulgated in 1995. As a young person who loved current affairs, my hopes were in the sky. I looked at this as the best plan for Ugandans to govern ourselves into the future. And I identified one enemy that the Constitution had taken out. The enemy was military men. So that was the enemy I identified at the time. But like they say in the military, the best plans fail at the first contact with the enemy. So the enemy, the first contact with the enemy came in 2005. Because we had a very smooth ride. I remember the wins by Dr. James Ranyarare, the late Paul Kawanga Semogerere in the Constitution and Supreme Court. They kept on showing us that we seem to be on the right path and the needle is moving one step at a time. And as young people, we had a lot of hope. Now, first contact with the enemy, 2005, term limits out. A military man had successfully emasculated the other arm of government, the legislature. The Black Mamba was the beginning of emasculation of the other arm of government, the judiciary. The rest is history. Now, my question to you, distinguished panelists. We have distinguished practitioners and jurists, and we have a distinguished former legislator. Can we stop speaking in tongues and tell Ugandans the alternative means they can use to redeem the Constitution? Because the judiciary and the legislature have been emasculated by the head of the executive. So what, can we speak a language that Ugandans will understand? What options do we have? What can we do to redeem constitutionalism for this country? Thank you very much.
Thank you. More comments?
Thank you very much. I'm going to raise a concern. You've picked so many men to speak. You don't look behind. My hand was the first up to comment, but unfortunately the microphone was handed over to Honorable Luchamzi. I guess he's a bigger man, so you had to give him the audience. Anyway, my name is Yvonne Mpambara. I'm a social justice lawyer. Have you switched off my microphone? Oh. I was among the only 3 women that submitted forms and expressed interest to run for presidency and remove Museveni. I have a comment and questions on the design of the Constitution. I know you don't want to take blame, but your great brilliant minds that sat down to draft the Ugandan Constitution from 1995. From the very onset of the design of this Constitution, especially when we look at the separation of powers, what was in the minds of the drafters when they looked at the power they were giving the president in the Constitution to appoint all the different positions that we have in the Constitution, the Electoral Commission, the IGG, the Human Rights Commission, the Judiciary? What was running through the minds of the drafters on the independence of the other parts or organs of governance? If one man, okay, I'll call him a man because right now he's the one leading his country, had the power to appoint them, how will a judicial officer like a justice wake up one day and say, I'm going to impeach Museveni who appointed me into the role I'm in? How would it have worked? I would love to hear how you were thinking about that, how the independence of these organs would have performed if the power was already in one man. Do we feel it was utopian for us to design our constitution that way? For parliament it makes sense, but the executive in the constitution seems to have had a flaw. Secondly, you can't blame these people for getting power to amend the constitution as they want. If they're calling it a mere paper, it's because it has become a mere paper. If Museveni wakes up today and I've annoyed him and he says, I'm going to put a clause, a new article in the Constitution that bars Yvonne from running for presidency, it's because he's been given the power to do so. Who do we blame? That's a discussion for another day. But should we then, and this is a question I'm going to pose, should we amend the clause on amendment in the Constitution and restrict it to a certain level of review that does not give power for most of these power-hungry people to just wake up and get angry and draft and redraft and amputate, like Honorable Dr. Miriam was saying, and amputate the Constitution as they will, or based off emotion? Thirdly and lastly, sorry, I don't want to talk too much. I think I talked about the utopian nature of this Constitution. Was it a genuine draft or document that was meant for Uganda, or we drafted it from what the colonial masters had left behind and just placed something in Uganda to try and work on? Is it realistic? Is it actually a living document? Are we genuinely saying that the Constitution that we have is a living document that can work in Uganda? Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists. I'm Elizabeth Abasa from Richard, Uganda. My question is very simple and precise. As the young people, as the youth, the current surge is on us. We really agree we have a very key role to play. But when you look at the job market, when you look at the current scenarios where everything has been commercialized and most of us are disparate because we want the money and we also want a better country, what advice would you give us that as we are struggling and looking at the sieve of changing our country, and we are also looking at the commercialization of the jobs and also the interest in the jobs, what best advice would you give us to strike a balance so that we can be able to attain both and we are in a very good economic country? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Sheila Amanio, a National Unity Platform member, and mine is a message of hope. There was a gentleman who said, what do we do? Where do we go from here? And I'm here to say that NUP is the solution. For those who dared to listen to our manifesto, the day we were nominated, we had a manifesto, our NUP manifesto being read out in local district, and one of our first priority issue is to restore constitutional order. NUP will restore presidential term limits and age limits as originally enshrined in the 1995 Constitution. NUP will reverse amendments that undermine constitutional safeguards and ensure constitutional amendments require broad public participation, parliamentary and civic social scrutiny. Basically, our focus is going to make sure we protect the Constitution of Uganda. So give us an opportunity as National Unity Platform, and we shall bring this country back to order. Thank you very much. Amanio Sheila, Woman Representative, Mukono District.
Thank you so very much for the opportunity. My name is Vatesa Kasfa Matene, a student at Makerere University Business School in my final year. And I'm going to be so very brief. And before I forget, let me start with someone that has just given us hope by going to the National Unity Platform. My question is, what exactly are we going to do and what change do you people have? Because these are the promises that most of the politicians have been giving to us. They want us to go to their parties, but it is the same story. Do you have anything? These are the same things you've been saying from the time we entrusted your MPs. What have they been doing in Parliament? You should have done examples. You should have given us examples by the MPs we sent to Parliament. That's when we should maybe have believed what your president has for us. But the fact that they are also doing the same as the previous ones, we cannot take that. I am part of the youth that need the hope. So that's why I'm reacting on that. And another thing, I am going to react about someone that talked about peace and sustainability in the country. And my question is, what do we consider as peace? Or where is the peace? People think that peace is all about them not having a war in the country. But that's not what all peace is all about. What is peace when I do not know what I'm going to do with my degree after the 3 years in university? What is peace when I do not know what I'm going to do with all the money that my parents have spent in me and I will be on the streets looking for a job like I never went to school? We've seen so many youth on the streets struggling to make ends meet, and these people went to school. They did not just go to school, but they also performed very well. But they have nowhere else to go. And you come and peace to the country without providing a solution for them. Really? Is that what we want to call peace? Of course not. And another thing, let's have more of the sensitization about this constitution thing. If it is possible, let's translate it to all the languages so that everyone can get to know about their rights. Let's make sure everyone knows about their rights. Thank you so much.
Check. I'm going to come back in round two. I request that we go back to the panelists, and then I'm going to come back in round two, and which will all have an opportunity to speak. I would like panelists to respond to some of the questions that were raised today.
Am I heard? Question was raised by my friend Ken Richamzi But I think, and he talked more about it, but I think he didn't elaborate the greater issue, which is normally summed up in the Buganda question. Many of our young generation are not caught up in this, but it still lingers on. The short history of it is that people like him and me were brought up by Uganda. This thanks to colonial policy of divide and rule. Buganda was separated from Uganda and given special treatment. So we grew up with those sentiments. For me, I never knew there was a Uganda until around maybe 1961, when there were discussions for independence and so on. Otherwise, everything that mattered came from a Uganda government, Kabaka's government. Is that not so? So, when we started collecting views, there was this talk about federal, which you should distinguish from federalism. Federal is the discussions and the emotions and the demands for the special treatment of Uganda, returning to the 1962 Constitution, which envisaged Uganda as almost a separate entity with a government and nominal institutions. Some of these institutions were very nominal, a high court, police, and so on. That's the Constitution. It pleased Uganda because it maintained the colonial status of Uganda within Uganda. But things kept changing, and when we were collecting views, federal and federalism was being confused by either those people who did not, those who were demanding for federal and others who were demanding for federalism. Federalism is separate, it is a higher degree of devolution, a higher degree of decentralization, let's say, where powers are strictly separated between a government at the center and the local units. And me, I support devolution, which is nearest to federalism. And in the collection of views, I was telling my fellow Uganda that rather than demand federal, look at a system of federalism which cuts across Uganda, not a separate status for Buganda. Because then it will be welcome for the whole of Uganda. But if it looks like you want federal, which is a special status, it's not going to work in the new developments now that we are in Uganda. Whereas as I grew up in Uganda, not Uganda. But applies to most others because they also grew up in separate entities in Ankole, Choli, and so on and so on. So that's where we are. We can still rediscuss the issue of federalism, or at least a higher degree of devolution. Because of what I spoke this morning, that we have gone astray. We have recentralized. And during that discussion, we can see, we can have a honest talk. Because some of these things we are hiding. We are hiding. When you want to talk openly, you fear that you'll be called secretarian and you know, we are cowed. The people, when you listen, they are talking, but you see, there is a certain ethnic domination in this country, but they speak quietly. But that is going to cause fire, you know. So these are matters we need to have a separate, a new conversation about and say, we are now aspiring to be Uganda. We have so far failed to be a Uganda. Let's see how we can live together. You know, it is surprising. When we overthrew Idi Amin here, there were a lot of expectations, and we speak some languages. We must detribalize the army because this had happened before. The army had been dominated by people in the north, Acholis and Langis, and that was terrible. Then Amin came up and slaughtered the Acholis and Langis and packed the army with the people from Koboko and Sudan and so on. And we thought all this should go. Now we are quiet. We talk quietly and sit is somewhere. It's welcome because you have strong, fewer local units, strong, empowered, and as an alternative check to central government. It's welcome. What is in doubt is federal. I hope I've made the difference between federal and federalism. Special status. Yeah. Now, I am happy that a young lady there has put up an argument. What is peace? When she qualifies and she has no job and so on and so on. That's very, 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 very serious, very important. Yes, as Emilia is saying, peace is not absence of war. The thing, or absence of sleep, the thing is, there is what we call human development, overall human development. Maybe what the young man said is he probably sees that as sustainability. But you cannot have peace without overall human development. So no one in this country is seriously discussing. The speaker there was casual. The parliament should discuss development and cross-check with the executive. Where are we going as far as human development is concerned? What are matters of